We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern14.com here to talk SEC basketball heading into Saturday's games. We have already previewed Auburn and Kentucky. So, Blake, let's hit the other six. We will go in order of tip-off. Vanderbilt visits Florida to take on the Gators. The Gators 8-point favorites at home, according to Ken Pom. Significant injury issues here. Vanderbilt still probably without Rodney Chatman. Liam Robbins has not played all year. I don't think he'll play this one. Again, almost certain of that. And Florida now with Colin Castleton has a shoulder injury. It's going to keep him out a while, so he will not play this one. Florida won at home, got a big win against Mississippi State without Castleton. Can they do it again, Blake?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, Vanderbilt's just a different team, of course, as we know. I mean, it's just kind of a different, I think, matchup that Mississippi State was, and I find it hard to trust Vanderbilt still at this point in terms of some of these games. So, I think this actually should be a pretty good game. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to the wire between these two. I think that, Florida may be riding that emotional high against Mississippi State, but now it's like, all right, we know we don't have him. We've already proven to ourselves that we can win, without Castleton on the floor. And I just don't think Vanderbilt presents the same sort of issues that Mississippi State did from a front court standpoint. So I think in that setting, you're going to give the nod to Florida here, but I would expect this to be pretty close because we have seen it at times where Vanderbilt's played okay down there. I know it used to be where they just felt like every time they went to Florida, it was just you knew what was coming, but I feel like they've played a little bit better, at least and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think for the most part, they've started to play better, over the past, decade or whatever in Gainesville, I think. So, so maybe there's something to that, but yeah, I'm going to pick Florida here. I think they're, even without Castleton, I think they're probably still going to have enough to win.
Yeah, of note, Vanderbilt I think is 5-1 away from home and 5-6 at home. Very, very atypical for Vanderbilt. I don't think that's ever happened, but you're still taking the Gators in 8.
Yeah, I think so. I think 8's high. I would probably make it more of a closer game. So I'll take Vanderbilt's in that scenario, just because I think there's a potential for this to be a close game, or the potential for Vanderbilt to win. So I think that's probably a better scenario.
Yeah, and we don't know the line yet. We'll see when that comes out,
yeah,
probably on Friday. But Georgia visits South Carolina. The Gamecocks 11-point favorites at tip-off 3:30 Eastern in Columbia. I don't think a game you're going to be watching unless you're a fan of either two teams or have something on this. Don't trust either of these outfits a whole bunch.
Tempted to pick Georgia here just because it makes no sense. But, when you have two teams that are very inconsistent, I mean, I could see it. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I know Georgia's been bad, but as we've said, they've kind of hung around in a lot of games minus the one against Auburn. So I can't say I'd be shocked if this is, one of those grinded out type games. And I think this style maybe fits Georgia a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to go with what you've seen thus far. And I've seen South Carolina, even at 1-4, I've seen them be much better than Georgia. So I'm picking the Gamecocks. But like you said, let's be honest. This is a game that I have no expectations for. So maybe it'll wind up being a good one. But I just don't know really what the direction is moving forward for these two teams. So,
of note, Georgia has kept a lot of games closer than people expected, though.
Right, and that I think is at least an interesting aspect to look at when you look at a game like this, because South Carolina is, let's face it, they're just not a great team. So yeah, I could see Georgia making this very interesting, but again, it's also a team that's 5-13 and hasn't won an SEC game. So there's only so much you can lean on confidence-wise in a team like that.
Okay, the rest of the weekend is revenge weekend. Why? Because you've got 4 rematches already, which is crazy. All the remaining games are rematches. Ole Miss travels to Mississippi State. The Rebels have not played well the last week. State comes off a tough loss at Florida. Ole Miss won the first go-round and was in control the whole time. State, though, a 10-point favorite on Ken Pom in Starkville. How do you see this?
Yeah, I think it's a good spot. A nice setup for an Ole Miss team that's struggling, as we know. Just got blown out at home against Missouri. I think Kermit Davis will have them ready to play, but now you go from that issue of being blown out at home by Missouri to now going on the road against your rival in a revenge game. I just think it all sets up for Mississippi State here. And like we said, too, Mississippi State really gave an opportunity away in Gainesville, and I think this would be a really nice way to rebound. I mean, it's a rivalry game, But I think there's a scenario here where Mississippi State comes out and just wins this game by double digits. I just think it sets up really nicely for them. But the rivalry aspect and knowing that they lost by double digits last time these two teams played, that makes me a little hesitant. But I just, we've seen this set up before, and I think it all kind of favors Mississippi State.
Okay, LSU handled Tennessee in Baton Rouge last time. LSU presumably going to be playing without Darius Days, who has sprained his ankle. I guess Xavier Pinson's out again. He was in street clothes in their last game, so I would think probably he's out again, but might want to check on that one a little closer to time. Tennessee healthy, but Blake, the problem is the Vols can't score. Since they beat Arizona, here are point totals for Tennessee. 68 in a loss at Alabama, which is not a very good defensive team. 60 in an overtime win at home. 67 in a loss at LSU. 66 in a home win against South Carolina. 79 against Kentucky in a game where Kentucky got 107, so that may explain some of it. And then 66 in a win at Vanderbilt. And, of course, we know LSU can defend, although not, as we noted, fully healthy. This one's interesting.
Well, my prediction is free throws and fouls.
Pain.
Because the Clever Lang, the last time these two played, as you mentioned, LSU won by 12. 44 fouls, 64 free throws. If my math is correct, maybe I'm wrong. Hold on a second. Maybe it's what's 37 plus 27? 64, right?
Yes.
Good
number
so
for
there you
hoops.
Go. Well, I mean, this was your SEC free throw shooting exhibition right here. I worry just because of how these two teams play defense that could happen again. I don't think it's going to be to that extreme though. I think this sets up really well for Tennessee. Like you mentioned, we talked about it. LSU, their schedule is it's brutal here early on, and without Pinson perhaps and Days, and it's just I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to put enough up offensively to win a game like this. But that's where you do have someone like Tari Eason who's really good, and he's good enough I think to kind of put them on his back if he needs to and make a lot of plays. So I this will be close, just I think because of the nature of the two teams. But I think this is revenge part one, and this is going to be a theme of my picks here. But I think Tennessee is in a really good spot here, and I think they should be able to pick up the win against what could be a pretty shorthanded LSU team.
Well, here's one other dynamic. We talked about foul shooting and foul proneness. You saw LSU get Efton Reed neutralized in the second half of that Alabama game with foul trouble. He's drawing, let me look this up, 6.7 fouls per 40 minutes. That's a lot. Tari Eason, 3.8 per 40. That one's on the road. He's had some minutes, I think, limited at time by foul trouble. Now, John Fulkerson is known to pick up a foul or two himself, but Tennessee with Uros Plavsic and Olivia Kumwa, I probably botched those names, but if you follow hoops, you know who I'm talking about. Tennessee's got a little more depth in the paint, and it's playing at home. I have to think that helps.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's just in a better spot here. And like I said, I think if you had LSU at full strength, and again, we're recording this on Thursday, so you never know in these kind of stuff. We always talk about this. It's hard to know sometimes, especially in college basketball, who's going to play. Sometimes some guys are game time decisions. You just never know. But I think this is just a much better scenario here for Tennessee. Again, with the revenge factor and just knowing that they're probably in a better spot right now versus an LSU team that's kind of in a situation where personnel wise, they'd love to have everyone on the floor, but I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay, Missouri traveling to Alabama. This is the most revenge games of all the revenge games, I suppose. Missouri has either been shockingly good or just beyond your wildest dreams for an SEC team, awful. Alabama's been playing better, snapped a losing streak. It is a 17-point favorite, according to Ken Pom. I think I know you well enough to know what you're going to say, but I need to hear it from you.
Alabama by double digits here. That's my prediction on this one. I think this is, and that's not a knock on Missouri. As we always, and you know what? One of these revenge games is going to go the way we don't expect it to, right? Like someone's going to, maybe it's LSU, maybe it's Ole Miss. Maybe it's the game we're going to talk about in a second, or maybe it is Missouri. Maybe it's just one of those scenarios where a team just has your number, even if these two teams are completely almost on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to where they're slotted this season. But I just don't see it. I think this is, as we've said, I know Missouri just won this road game by 25 at Ole Miss, but the full body of work tells us that Missouri is not very good on the road. And I think this is a setup here where Alabama's going to come out fresh off that win against LSU, and they have something to prove. And it's not going to be easy against the Conzo Martin defense, as we know. That's one thing I would kind of hesitate on when I laughed about saying Alabama by double digits, but I would be a little hesitant on that just because of that. But I just think there's no way probably you're picking against Alabama here in this scenario.
Do you think the line will be 17?
Probably. Like I just think that it's again.
But I mean, Missouri won the last one.
Right,
that would keep it down a little bit. You'd think.
I don't know. Like we said though, the Missouri at Ole Miss game such an outlier for how Missouri has played on the road. Every other game they've been blown out pretty much for the most part. So, and you've got that revenge aspect. You've got a team that if they get going, Alabama doesn't shoot as well this season as they have before, but this is still a team I think that can push you off the floor if they need to, and I don't think that's going to happen here, but I think Alabama wins this one, and perhaps convincingly.
So you think if it's 17, you're on Alabama?
I think Alabama wins this between 15 and 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Last one, A&M, which won the first matchup between these two teams, coming off a tough home loss to Kentucky, goes to Arkansas, which has seemingly found its way. A&M is a 5-point underdog in this one, according to Ken Pomeroy. What are we thinking?
Make it 4-0 on the revenge. I'm going to go Arkansas here. I think that Arkansas just, as we said, they have figured it out, and we were not as high on Arkansas going the season, but we just said, hey, once they got into that lull, they probably are going to have a chance to get out of it just because of their schedule early on, and I think this is another example of that where they have a really good shot here to move to 4-3. A&M played so close; they had their chances against Kentucky. I think you can inevitably have a let down after that. They were so close to winning that game, moving to 5-0, and this is where now you go on the road playing a very tough environment. And I just think Arkansas probably sets up better again with that chip on your shoulder of knowing this team just beat you not long ago. That was a very good game. So I think it swings back in Arkansas's favor here. But I am more curious to see, of these 4 revenge games, I'm more curious to see who is going to be the one that's pulls off the sweep, because I think it's going to happen. I don't know which one it's going to be in. So I'm a little curious about that.
Ole Miss-Mississippi State, to me, seems like the one, because Ole Miss has been really hot and cold, and State just has not gotten it all together yet.
Could be. I think if I had to rank it, I think I would rank LSU 1, just because, I think that's probably the highest probability, because, they're 2 very good teams, and, LSU's not a bad team at all. So I'd probably rank them 1. I may go A&M 2. And then maybe
if you look at lines, Tennessee is the closest. Tennessee LSU is the closest, followed by A&M-Arkansas, then Ole Miss-Mississippi State, then Missouri-Alabama.
That's probably how I would order it.
So,
I mean, that's, again, there's nothing. That's not exactly a revelation. Yeah, I think that's how I'd probably order it in terms of likelihood of that happening. So. Yeah,
and I think the difficulty here with A&M-Arkansas is just figuring out how good A&M is, because again, the schedule. We think they're good, and they look pretty good against Kentucky, but they haven't been tested as much as you would like to see.
2 SEC road games are at Georgia and at Missouri, and they won both of those games by 3 points or less. So
which tells us, if it tells us anything, it's not encouraging, but I think they're better than that. We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Blake, we got a special deal for listeners with Action 24/7. Tell folks about it.
Yep, Action 24/7 in the description of this video. Just click on the link we have there. Put in that code South14. Your first deposit, they will match up to $800, I believe it is. And so, you can sign up, bet on all these games, and just use that link in the description below.
All right, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you back again next week.